like to take this opportunity to welcome each of you here tonight. Let me get my pen. Okay. Item number 4 on the agenda is welcoming. I just did that. Item number 5 is approval of the agenda.
Mayor and members of the council, I have added one item because we didn't have enough tonight. Under old business, item number 3 is the municipal election procedures and one-stop site. We wanted to update you on what's happening and get you to basically reaffirm what you all want to do as a council for the election that's coming up. So that's.
What, this is approval of the agenda?
Councilman Moore is adding an item.
Oh.
New business number 5.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. With those changes, do I hear a motion?
Councilman Moore made the motion.
I'll second.
All approval of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Ms. Parker, I'm sorry, you're supposed to do it, aren't you?
No, we're good. We're good. We're back to normal
Okay.
for the moment.
For the moment?
For the moment.
Okay. All righty. Item number 6 is a public hearing, Carroll Crossing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, as always, it's a pleasure to be in front of you guys tonight. So we do have a recent request. This is Carroll Crossing, Section 3. The applicant is Lee and Land Properties Incorporated. This property is located on Church Street, that's southwest intersection of L'Oreal's Road. Parcel number 04819, it's a little over 5 acres. Current zoning is neighborhood commercial, and the proposed zoning is an RA conditional district. That condition in that district would be all duplexes shall have a brick facade, and that would match what's already in the previous section of Carroll Crossing. Site history notification was posted on this site for the rezone on April 29th. Adjacent property owners will mail notification of public hearing on July 20, and notification was published in the day reflected on July 28th and August 4th. You can see on the screen here, here's our property here. So it's these two properties actually right here, separated by James Lane, Church Street here, and L'Oreal's and the other. Just an area shot. Robert Clinton there, and our operations center in Covert, up here as well. This shows the boundary of what's going to be rezoned, proposed rezoned. Current zoning, you see there it is, neighborhood commercial, with an industrial next to it, and then the adjacent RA conditional district already in place with Carroll Crossing. Existing land use map, it just shows it's vacant, it is a vacant piece of property. There's nothing on it whatsoever. The future land use plan, it does show it as urban neighborhood character area, but our urban neighborhood character area does allow for attached residential permitted. That's if our design criteria is met. Looking further into our land use plan, it does show attached housing. Potential zoning also have RG and R8 right there. It does line up with our land use plan. Just some photos of the site there. You look, see it's vacant, obviously, it's Church Street, and then south, but that's Carroll Crossing in existence. So with that, staff recommendations, plan staff does find that this request is reasonable in the public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with the surrounding land uses and the future land use plan. The staff does recommend approval of the request for rezone 5.295 acres from commercial neighborhood to R8 conditional district with the condition that all duplexes will have brick facades.
John,
Yes, sir.
Carol Carlson has a requirement that the home association cuts the grass.
Okay.
Can we put it out as a requirement this late?
Yeah, that's acceptable if the property owner or the applicant would accept it.
That's working out real well.
So during the public hearing, the representative from Baldwin Design Services is here, she can address that. But our planning process, it has gone to planning board. They did unanimously recommend approval in the May meeting. This public hearing is scheduled in the June council meeting. And obviously, we're about to have a public hearing. But just to note, we didn't receive any comments, haven't documented any for or against. With that, I'll answer any questions. Any further questions? Hearing none, Mr. Mayor, we're ready for the public hearing.
Okay, with that public hearing, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of this request?
Thank you, Mayor and Town Council. My name is Dawn Paletti. It's great to see you tonight. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am with Baldwin Design Consultants, and I'm here representing the client, Legal Land Properties, regarding this property. As you know, it is currently zoned a neighborhood commercial, and the owner of that property cannot really develop it in a way that would to continue the expansion of Carroll Crossing. And so we're requesting that R8 zoning with that conditional use of the brick front. So it would be just an expansion of what's currently there at Carroll Crossing. To Mr. Moore's question, I cannot answer that regarding the homeowners association, if they would even be included in that association. There would be another association that would be required for this section. So
How about curb and gutter?
whatever this town requires. I know sidewalks will be required.
Can require curb and gutter? On Church Street and down.
There would be no curb cut.
Step to the,
I was gonna ask that
step to
question.
the things.
So the ordinance would not dictate him upgrading Church Street to curb and gutter. Just the interior, they would have to put a sidewalk down Church Street, the berm. So it's just like all our double fronted lots. If when the subdivision would come in, they'll be required to show all that.
Would there be no burn?
There will be a berm and sidewalk on Church Street.
But am I hearing correctly that we no curb and gutter?
Interior of the streets, any streets they construct would have to come up to the standards of the Winterville ordinance. Yes, sir.
But not existing streets.
Any other questions?
So are they required to have a homeowners association? They
Yes,
are?
yes, it would be a new section of that. Any other questions I can answer or try to answer? Thank you again for letting me speak.
Anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, I close the public hearing. What's the board's pleasure?
I make a motion, we accept approval from the planning board.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to amend their motion to include that we require them to have a homeowner association cut the grass. This was made Carol Paulson.
believe he wants to have
There.
Right through Carroll Crossing.
I don't
homeowners,
have no problem.
excuse me, homeowners association that would require grass cutting.
Carroll Crossing does.
I'll say legally, we cannot.
Right, you can't,
That's what I was,
yeah, you can't do that. I mean,
Impose conditions unless the applicant accepts.
Right.
I just had a discussion that I was opposed to it because I think it should be a requirement that they do this.
I agree. We got enough places that folks aren't taking care of the mess.
Got one next door to me.
As you know, every time we come in here, we talk about, oh yeah, there's gonna be a homeowners association, yeah, there's gonna be a homeowner, and they don't do jack. And we got some bad looking places.
I totally agree with you as far as keeping the consistency with the current Carroll crossings. I'm not sure the intention of the owner, or the applicant, other than, representation here tonight, that's the only answer I've got.
well, my question is, since we got a motion on the floor, could we go ahead and approve this, and could we add that on a little bit later, or if we approve it, could that be, it couldn't be added on once we discuss it with the developer?
There'd be a discussion with the developer, obviously.
Yes.
I couldn't enforce it from the zoning side.
Right.
I couldn't enforce it as a conditional district. But, you know, obviously, we do require a homeowner association, so if they want to be consistent with the current Carroll Crossing section and include that as part of their homeowner association, that would be the conversation we could have.
Yes, sir. Well, my motion
Right.
will still stand.
Well, this will coming again, if we don't put it in motion to approve, it never happens. It would just, this service to people in neighborhood.
I agree. It won't get
Brian, are they
done.
considered condominiums?
No, just, it wouldn't be.
Duplexes. Okay, so technically, what yard belongs to each unit?
So you'll have a zero lot line between them, so where their firewall is, that'll
Right.
be their lot line. So the yard, their house would sit on their yard, so.
Right.
It would be split, totally split now.
Anything, I'm sorry.
Any place for storage of a lawnmower?
Just like a typical backyard with a fence or a storage shed. So
But-
they can do accessory buildings.
Well, if it's not addressed with this approval, that berm will never be taken care of.
So
It'll look good until they build the last house or they build the last duplex.
the burn will be a separate situation, so the burn will be included in maintenance. So that burn will have a dedicated easement along it, so it'll be a landscape and buffer easement.
So after the last duplex is built, they're still responsible for that berm?
100%.
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
But not the yard,
Not the
yards.
Right.
Yeah, I can't, without putting that in type of conditional, restriction on a zoning district, there's no way we can enforce individual property maintenance by the HOA. We do have our nuisance laws that, our code enforcement, once the grass gets a certain height, we obviously take care of that.
But for my own, the yards,
Well, that's questionable.
all of the rear yardage belongs to the owner of the unit.
That's correct, yeah.
What about the entrance signs?
Via
Oh, Lordy.
Most of the ones that you see that aren't kept up are not currently involved in homeowners association.
Will there be a fence behind present Carroll Crossing in these houses?
Only if they want one. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen any designs for it.
Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand, please. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now it's the public comment period. We have, excuse me, one person, Ursula Turnage, has signed up to speak. The board, many years ago, voted I have to do this whenever someone comes in to speak. The public comment period. Public comment period of 30 minutes provides an opportunity for residents to comment on any item included in the agenda or to address the town council on any other matter related to the town of Winterville. For an item included in the public hearing section of the agenda, residents should address the council at the time the mayor invites public comment on the item. No public comment may be made to the council during the meeting except during the public comment period or as part of a public hearing. Individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and no more than 3 speakers may address the council on a single matter. The town council may elect to take no action on the matter addressed by a speaker, may schedule the matter for further consideration at a future council meeting, or may refer the matter to town staff for disposition. Copies of the town's comment policy are available at the rear of the assembly room. Okay, as I said, Ms. Turnage has signed up to speak. Right there, yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to stand before you to our members. I am a unemployed attorney. I'm on behalf of Pastor Tyrone Turnage, that owns the church at Railroad Street. I am a resident right beside the church. I stay in the house. His concern and my concern is speed bumps. I can sit on my porch any number of time of the day, and 9 out of 10 people does not stop for that stop sign. And we are very concerned about this rate of speed they are coming, coming by and sliding and then just going on across the road. So that's a very big concern for myself and my brother, that if nobody else don't want a speed bump, you can put one in front of my house or the church. So we're very concerned about that. And also he said that we do support the idea of the street being named from Weatherton past the Cradle store. But his other concern was that if the business owner past that would reroute their interest because of the name or anything like that. So that's-
Well, is the church's address on Railroad Street or on the other street?
It's on Railroad Street right here beside
I know where this church is, but is the address?
yes, on Railroad Street.
Years ago, it was on the other street. I remember before it was a church, it was, the address was there on that corner, but it was on, what is it, not Jones,
Tyson, but it's an address on Railroad Street now because mine is 2498 and the church is 26. That's right.
okay, all righty. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank y'all for me.
Okay, item number 8 is the consent agenda. Are there any items that needs to be removed? If not, do I hear a motion we approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion.
You got a second, then Mark second?
I didn't hear a
Mark, do you
second.
second it?
I don't know whether it was a first or a second, but
Okay.
you can put me down for
Okay.
either.
Okay.
Okay, all righty. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, okay? All right, moving on to old business. The number 1 is Recreation Advisory Board composition.
Mayor, I'll handle that. At your last meeting, there was discussion on changing the composition of the Recreation Advisory Board, and you even passed a motion as to the makeup of that. Tonight is just an official ordinance establishing that change that you made last month. Excuse me, it would have been in June.
So all we have to do is just vote on it?
Yes,
I'll be glad to answer any questions, but
Oh,
yes,
okay.
that's,
Yes, we need to approve the official ordinance so that that
Right.
is official.
Motion to approve.
Second it.
Have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Got the second.
Okay,
Mark made it first and I second it.
all right, item number 2 is acceptance of the state loan sanitary sewer rehab project number, and I won't read all those numbers, for $1,974,200. Resolution 21 R. Robert 083.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This item before you, if you recall, the town submitted an application to the state, very similar, identical actually, to the one that's funding the sewer rehab gravity collection system project. This is for rehabilitation of some of our pump stations across town. We were awarded and given $1.9 million in funding. 500,000 of that is principal forgiveness. The remaining balance, 1.474 million, will be paid back over 20 years at 0% interest. So this item before you is a resolution accepting the loan offer and allowing us to continue to do the design work and then get to the point of bidding out the project for actual construction.
Make a
Anyone have
motion
any
that we,
questions? Dan?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for acceptance. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All righty, item number 3 is municipal election procedures and one-stop sites.
Don't we have the stormwater? Is that what he's over for? Next one?
That's under new business.
Oh,
We
okay.
added a third one under old business
Okay.
at the approval of the agenda.
Okay. No problem.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Don.
I had at your places a short memorandum updating the situation with the 21 municipal election procedures. If you look at that, the history, we had our estimate from the Board of Elections and the amount that it was going to be based on Greenville participating in the election. With the census coming along and it being delayed, they had to they're going to have to wait until next year to have their election. So it required the Board of Elections to rethink how they did things. You can see the breakdown of what their estimate was. You can see that we prepared our budget based on that with a little bit of leadway in there. Since that time, the Board of Elections has come back with Greenville out and given us updated estimates. We pursued trying to get the shared site, one-stop site here in the community room, and we thought we had it was going to go and it would have run the entire time. However, there was a regulation that required that to take place in Greenville, close to the Board of Elections site. So it meant they had to back up a stroke or so there, and most likely they have to vote on that. Their board has to vote on that. Will most likely be at the Pat's conference room, which is in the county complex. With that being said, then I asked for estimates of what our costs were going to be, and then what would the additional cost be for us to have a one-stop site here for the time period that you all had originally asked, and that was for 1 week. You can see those figures at the bottom of the page. There is a increase there from what it would have been to now of about $5,000, which we had no control over because of the nature of that. But I would say that it's still within the budgeted amount. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have or clarifications that you'd like to have?
The purpose of bringing this up tonight is we wanted to make you aware of what's happened at the Board of Elections with respect to the upcoming municipal election and how things look now that Greenville is not considered in this upcoming election based off of what they've got going on, waiting on census numbers. So what that did was increased the cost shares for all of the remaining municipalities that will be having an election. That's why you see sort of a flip-flop in the numbers with respect to the elections costs and then the one-stop site costs on top of that. We wanted to make sure that you still wanted, that you knew there was going to be one Board of Elections site that's going to be in Greenville, and you still wanted to have the one-stop site for the dates denoted here. I just wanted you all to reaffirm that that's what you want, or tell me what you desire in terms of the upcoming election, if it's different than what's being proposed.
We're supposed to get report on the 12th. And as soon as we participated, maybe Greenville putting the registration.
I don't know that they'll have time, I don't know that they would have time.
I've got no indication from the board or anyone that that was going to help those. There were all kinds of wrangling around in the legislature, and I think there were even some bills passed that would have. Aiden is part of
Yes.
our time period.
Their registration period.
Yes, it was a different registration. Filing dates were different than ours, but they will be doing election on November the 2nd.
And again, for members of the public, this is for municipalities that have districts where people vote versus those of us that all of our seats are at-large seats, and everybody votes for every one. So that's the difference in what's been happening at the state level and how that's affected the elections coming forward in Pitt County. Again, I wanted you to know that the total has increased from what the original estimate was given to us in March, and the reasons why that has increased, and to make sure that you all still want to proceed forward with a one-stop site here in Winterville from October 25th through the 30th. And if you all would reaffirm that with a motion and a vote, that would be,
I make a motion that we accept the numbers.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, item number 10. First item under that is the stormwater permit. Notice of violation.
Good evening again.
Never what we like to bring you.
This item before you is, the state came, the town is a MS4, a municipal separate storm sewer system. We have a permit to operate and inspect and maintain our stormwater network. As a result of that permit, you have to have an audit with the state that's been going around doing audits statewide on all those MS4 units. Based on the audit conducted back in late May, DEQ identified some major deficiencies with our MS4 that were not in compliance with our permit. Those deficiencies constituted a violation. That NOV is included in your packet outlining some of those deficiencies. We have a schedule that we have to comply with to come back in the good graces of DEQ and to fall within the order of our permit that we will be reissued. There's a couple of steps that we have to take to stay on schedule and be in compliance. This item before you this evening is to make you aware of that NOV and have council adopt a resolution that is declaring the support for taking those actions to become compliant with the stormwater management program.
Was there any penalty?
If we don't comply with the schedule, then there'll be a $25,000 penalty per violation.
Obviously, it's our recommendation that you accept and agree with the schedule.
Motion to approve.
Can I ask a question first, before we go? How did we get to this, Ben?
Well, as I said, we have a permit.
Right, I understand, yeah.
The process, so some of the deficiencies that were outlined in the NOV were, we have to have an illicit discharge detection and elimination program. That was not fully established. There has to be an operation and maintenance program plan, an actual document that had not been developed, a O&M plan for our own stormwater controls has to be done. And then the large item is just an overall encompassing stormwater management plan document that has and documents all of these policies, procedures, contact information, and that had not, we don't have that. So
Okay.
that was one of the
Now-
major items there.
All right, I'm asking Terry, we knew this going in
Correct.
because we were.
Most of these things,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Yes. I don't know that it was,
We knew we knew some of the things that we were lacking, and
Right.
we had prior, even a year ago, been working and trying to schedule and take care of some of these things. There's a funding and a staffing hurdle there to overcome on that side of things to make sure all of those things are done. However, we did not know until we were done with the audit to what severity each of these deficiencies
Okay.
would trigger. You know, there are some there are very few in the state that have passed. There are a lot that are lacking, and there are just as many that are like us.
Okay. All right.
yes, we knew that we didn't have a plan.
Right.
We've been trying to figure out a way to fund that.
Uh-huh.
It's not a cheap endeavor. Obviously, we've got to have it. I think Ben's right. I don't know that we knew we were going to walk away with a notice of violation. So, having a schedule, though it's going to be challenging, I think helps us make these things happen.
Okay, so going forward, we'll be more on top of it.
I think once these things are in place, it's
Uh-huh.
going to be a much easier, or not easy, but it's going to be a much easier endeavor to keep them up to date and where they need to be. It's trying to get all of these documents in place that can be a little bit overwhelming at times, but I do think sometimes these documents help us get where we need to be.
$25,000 overwhelming to me.
That's a motivating factor to get
Yes.
it done. I'd rather spend it on a plan than spend it paying it in a fine.
Okay.
Well, and as the resolution is stating, and as the NOV state, that you can have the plans to check off, and that's good, but if you then also have to have the folks dedicated to implementing what the plan is calling for. If it's routine inspections of facilities, if it's going out monitoring and writing NOVs to folks that are violating the illicit discharge, you know.
Okay.
You can have the plan, but if it collects dust and you don't do anything on it, you might as well not even have the plan.
Well, Mark got a motion, and I second that motion if anybody didn't second. Did you make the motion, Mark?
Did.
All right, I second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We will keep council informed as we progress and move forward through this schedule.
Okay.
I think the next one's me too, right? All right,
I believe so.
I said, I think the next one's me. All
I
right, so
believe
Okay,
the next item,
yeah.
we're gonna hire somebody to do these plans for us.
That's right. That's
And every time you see them, we're checking off one of these things on this list. The next item is an agreement for Woot Company to help develop the items that we need to be compliant with our MS4 permit. They'll be developing the overall stormwater management plan. They'll be doing the illicit discharge detection elimination program, development, the O&M plan.
Motion for approval.
There you go.
Have a motion
I second.
and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Discussion, just a second. What's the cost for this?
It'll be, the contract is for $28,500
And the fine's only $25,000, right?
each.
Each.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't know
it'll
that.
add up quick.
Thank you for asking that question.
You can throw a cup out the window at $2,200 a pop, and it adds up.
That last?
That's cost like this per year or just a one-time cost for the,
The $28,500
for the contractor, for,
is the cost, one-time cost to develop these plans for the council to adopt, and us to submit to the state. And that's part of their, contract too, is to help with not only developing the plans, but presenting and adoption, but then submitting back to DEQ to stay on schedule and in compliance with their requirements.
So obviously, there'll be additional cost as we implement these plans and obviously try to proceed forward with putting them in place. But this gets us started, and it's the first big step towards where we need to be.
Right, and just as with all our plans, they'll have to be updated and modified, so there'll be some revisiting costs associated with that a few years down the road.
Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, item number 3 is the school resource officer contract.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This item of business is our annual school resource officer contract with Pitt County Schools. It's basically the same contract as last year for the most part, and the numbers have changed a little bit due to some cost of living raises and some benefits changes that the school has, the county has agreed to continue to fund, and once approved, we'll get all the parties to sign it, and it'll be executed properly, and it'll be good for this year.
I make a motion, we accept it.
A second.
Have a motion to accept. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, item number 4, 11 at Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so we got 11 in Maine, this is a preliminary plat. This one is a little bit different than what we normally would see as a preliminary plat. So we got a multi-family development in a townhome community. But I'll run through some site data. If you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me as we're going along. So this is located out on the intersection of Highway 11 and Main Street on that southeast corner. Parcel number 05589. It's a 20-acre site. It's 154 lots, and we call them lot/units because they're going to be individual lots, individual townhomes. So the current zoning is multifamily residential. So as a, when we look at our zoning ordinance, if you look at multifamily residential, it's allowed within multifamily residential zoning district with a special use permit. So they've already gone through the special use permit requirement at the Board of Adjustment. So basically, the special use requirement specifies density, dimensional requirements, and setbacks, as well as access. Then it also gives the actual total density. They are allowed up to 255 unit development there. This proposal is for 154. So that special use permit was approved by Board of Adjustment on May 18th. Subsequently, one of those requirements is to go before planning board. Planning board actually has 2 roles in this, other than typically they would just be approving a preliminary plat, but they actually do a little checks and balances where they actually approve the site plan. The site plan is just really what the BOA looked at. So planning board has dual site plan and the preliminary plat. So we did the preliminary plat first, and then the subdivision plan comes next, so you actually recommend approval of the preliminary plat or subdivision, which is where we're at now with you guys for the subdivision plan. Again, that SUP or special use permit was approved by Board of Adjustment. Then, technical review committee did approve the site plan and preliminary plat on July 6th. The planning and zoning board approved the site plan and then recommended approval of the preliminary plat to town council on July 19th. And so here we are with this agenda with, your action. So here's some site data. So here's your, property here, that's regional right in the middle, so Main Street, Highway 11, there's, Middle Street, this is, West 11, downtown District.
They give money for the recreational area.
So that, we'll handle that during the final plat stage.
Right.
So, but they do have some land dedicated on their, plat for it. Anything, remaining, they'll pay a fee as you would.
Have that stormwater.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Oh,
There's
wow.
always a couple of design phase, which will be next, but we can go over that for sure. So again, current zoning, multifamily, residential. So I will make note that, in our, land use plan, this is the Main Street, the rendering we did, the architectural rendering. It showed some medium to higher density in the exact area that, Brick Development is proposing this one for. There's an aerial shot of it, you can see, Main Street to the north and Highway 11 to the, up there. So there's your site plan for the preliminary plat, so there's the name you can see coming in off Main Street here. And this is the, preliminary plat for, what the 154 proposed townhome unit property. The access here off 11, that's gonna be a right in, right out. Access off of, Main Street, you have, access here off Blunt, and Cooper as well to provide access.
Where's the burn gonna be?
So the burn will be right here, you can see.
Right down.
West side?
I can show it a little better.
Right down there.
The picture burn
Right.
right there. We typically, we have a burn, our sidewalk would be in Highway 11, it is a restricted access. We don't want pedestrian access out there, so we won't see a sidewalk along, Highway 11. That's actually after consulting with DOT, trying to get this access right and then making sure we kept everybody off this road as quick as possible. So, the pedestrian aspect is really the DOT's plan.
Will there be a fence along there somewhere? Burn.
Just the berm. So we'll have the 3-foot high berm vegetated. So with that, that's all I have. We'll get recommendations. So based on the applicant's meeting requirements of the special use permit, which is approved by BOA and the technical review committee, as well as the planning board recommended approval, the planning staff does recommend approval. So with that, I'll answer any questions. You guys have with me. I will second that, Mr. Dale Britt with Brick Development. If you guys have any questions for me.
There's one concern that I have. I know we talked about stormwater. Right now, we have a serious problem right there on Main Street. Whenever it rains, I mean, it's just like a pool. And I just hope and pray that whatever we do, that it will help that situation that we have already in place. You know, that is very important. I'd like to know, and I know that's down the road when we'll find that out about his plans on.
Sure, so they're already in their design phase of it, so you can see here that they'll have a big
Just
stormwater block here and here. So they're gonna capture all the stormwater on the site, which they'll be required to do, obviously. Release that.
Could you point that again where the storm, with the pond?
Right.
Oh, that would be the pond.
Okay, so you're gonna have a stormwater pond, obviously adequate enough to take into account the stormwater runoff on this site. So pre and post development dictates, they can't release it slower or faster than what was already there. So they'll have those measures in place to make sure that the stormwater is controlled.
It sure looks like a big retention pond.
Yes, it does.
Who's gonna cut it after everybody's gone?
You're gonna love it, it's the HOA.
Like all of them.
Is that like the one next to me? That's about as high as my head right now.
I don't look a lot different.
Fountains.
Well, the one next to me is wet when it rains too.
I make a motion that we approve it, approve the, a preliminary plat. Correct? Preliminary, yeah.
Have a motion, but, and I'll call for it. Is there a second?
I'll make the second.
Okay, discussion.
My concern is the flooding. Main Street already floods enough as it is now. Just add to it, unless we have another plan other than, especially the area close to, Main Street. The flood.
Now, I know it's multifamily. What type of multifamily is it? Do-
Individual townhomes, so
Individual.
they'll be attached, they'll be, these, you can see, these renderings here will be six long in a row, so most of them are gonna be 6 attached townhome buildings.
I'm gonna ask a question because I don't know. Is there any way you can limit this to no Section 8?
So Section 8 obviously doesn't, nobody intends for, development to turn to Section 8. Section
I
8
know.
Comes
And
from,
I know that
the
Greenville.
government offering subsidies, so, but
Right.
I don't think there's a legal way, and I'll ask the council about that.
No, sir.
I'm not aware of any way that the town can put a restriction or condition on Section 8.
I know that our adjoining city to the north has built umpteen apartment complexes, and they can't rent them, and they go to Section 8 so they can get the rent. I've got, out of what I did have, I got one rental unit left. I went to Section 8 one time, and I'll never do it again, because I know what Section 8 is. And I'm just asking this question. I would hate to have a nice subdivision over there with multifamily in it, and then they can't rent them, and they go to Section 8, and I know what goes in Section 8.
But that
Well,
also speaks to our town being one type of people and saying that we do not want people who do not have the socioeconomic level that others are at. It bothers me that we would speak against, people just because they're not as advantaged as we are. I just don't see categorizing it against a certain group, especially since I am of a group that at one time, things were, I don't want you in my neighborhood. So I would hate to see us go and even try or even mention not including everybody or leaving it open to whosoever will.
Well, yeah, again, we want to be inclusive, not exclusive. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. Section 8 can be quote unquote anyone,
Oh, yes, I agree.
and,
Like I
anybody can fall on hard times. And so, but, again, our object and our objective for this town, I hope, is to be inclusive, not exclusive. We should welcome anyone. So,
Well, I agree, we
Right.
should welcome, but I think we need to make sure that the ones we welcome will take care of the property. Like the one I had, they drew pictures on the wall and damaged the house. It cost me about $3,000 to get it back in shape. Went to court, and I lost because it was Section 8.
but again, Mayor, I mean, not to get into a whole lot of, but that's something that happens with you, and we hopefully it won't happen, with this property owner here. And I think with the town and with the planning department and everyone else, and there's a body of this town that we stay on stuff like that, to make sure we can present our town to be a place that you can put up these townhomes, and we can attract people to these townhomes. It doesn't depend on their economic standard, but if they can afford it, let them have it. If they can't, they'll find somewhere else to move to. But at the same time, you know, that's something that happens to you, and again, we pray that doesn't happen.
Well, if they can't
This
afford
area.
it, Section 8 pays it for the rent.
My only concern again is, we got a water problem, we're flooding all the time. This would just add to the problem, this would take care of the problem.
Well, again, they designing a plat, and your plat is gonna show there's retention ponds. And now, since stormwater has always been the thing, but now it's beginning to take shape. Every development now you look at just about have a retention pond somewhere near to protect this runoff, you know.
And
So-
it doesn't work.
Well, Tony, if it wasn't working, they wouldn't require it in preliminary plats.
Again, any law you make can have mistakes in it. Stormwater ponds, I hadn't seen that they work. Just in the General Assembly, a lot of discussion about stormwater ponds. We got the worst problem of any county in Pitt County. So, my house is included. It's bad.
Well, we have the problem because we're being it. Take off, you know, because before this, I know, no, you're not the problem, but before we had undersized pipe. Now we're getting that issues taken care of, correct?
Ben?
Ben?
We all know, majority of towns all has
Right.
now rooftops and asphalt. Take for instance, Noble Canal Drainage Basin, 300 acres over here, and there's not the first pond in it. So there is hindsight that results in these regulations that require these types of ponds. There are monies out there for retrofitting areas that, you know, we even recommended at one time trying to install a pond in that basin over there, to try to hold back and release some of that. But it's hard to find areas like that on a canvas that's already full of paint. But the regulations require Mr. Britton and the engineer too, for that site, post-development, no more runoff coming off of it than the pre-disturbed rate. I understand and we have in some situations, there is the ability to over-design by a factor of whatever, to give you a little bit of elbow room just in case something doesn't add up the way it did on paper before you built it. You know, those are things that are options for us to consider in having a little bit more strict regulations than what the state minimum are. That's a whole nother workshop discussion.
Is the tile cheaper than the sewer or on Main Street?
While we got all the roads closed, that's all sanitary sewer.
Sewer, nothing to do with runoff.
It has nothing to do with storm
It's not
drainage.
affected at all, is it? Should we have done something different?
Well, DOT, right, so I'd have to look and see exactly where, but I think the majority of this water is actually going back towards the cell tower, towards Laurie Ellis. So that stuff's gonna hit to try to go out, another way, south of Winterville Machine Works, but behind the apartments and cut its way behind the, field and make its way towards that ditch that's heading in that direction. So this should actually not impact the flooding that happens at the stoplight during those torrential downpours. That particular site, other development in that area could certainly do so. But again, it's a lot of Winterville had, you know, was built up before stormwater regs, and then the bottlenecks that exist in some of these areas and undersized pipes create that problem. That it is a flash problem. You know, that rain we had 2 inches of rain in about 45 minutes. Nothing can handle that. That's gonna take 72-inch pipes all over town, and
Right.
we can't afford that type infrastructure. That's a little overkill. makes just,
Nothing would like, I like that.
yeah, it's, and we're getting it more and more often, so, you know, we have what we have, and we're dealing with what's coming down, and we can try to forecast and make some improvements, and, like I said, to add some additional capacity in some of these ponds, if that's something that, again, another day, another time, and a couple of workshops on that.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
I want to make sure I hear you. Did I hear you correctly that you feel like this will not enhance the problem or increase the problem that we, I'm just asking a question.
I can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
I'll chew on my microphone.
Okay. Are we saying that this is what you are saying, that it will not enhance the condition that we already have? It will not make it worse than what it already is?
That is the intent behind the stormwater regulations and the design and the resulting calculations that he and his engineer will provide me and Wooten Company to review and confirm certain amount of, based on all that engineering math. That's why I got into planning. I was told there'd be no math.
Gotcha.
So we will look at what they're proposing, how they're calculating. If we agree with it and it complies with the regs, then it will proceed. But that is the intent.
So the Wooten Company will be representing us as the
Yes,
engineer?
sir, absolutely.
That's what I'm, okay.
Well, I'll ask a question then. Down by the store. We were told, years ago, we changed the tile on the railroad track.
Uh-huh.
We were putting smaller tile. We didn't do it for much at that time.
Just took a guess.
We put a smaller tile, we took all the money got from Powellville, road money, and put on that piece of tile.
Sure, we'll talk
And it's
all
small, to what company?
Carolina Benchmark? No. Right, and looking back, the configuration of that tile, it's almost, they're not running triple barrels parallel. There's kind of a 90-degree bend, which we know water doesn't, like that as much as other things. So it kind of hits and then it backs up because you've got a lot of things. It's rush hour traffic on the interstate. Can't everybody get on it all at one time, so you just kind of have to slow down and let it go. But again, too, that was probably, I'm not sure what year that was, but that may have been before, and I mean, there's a few more subdivisions that are coming to that are further upstream that may have still been fields at the time
What farm?
that had not been developed at that time. So then that's probably Main Street Village was post, there's not a single pond from there to Old Hall Road.
Right.
So it's,
I remember.
Ben should be a politician.
Well, he is correct in that it is
With those
highly-
answers,
Yes, and it is highly unlikely that one pipe makes or breaks an entire system. Usually it is a plethora of issues. So it would be inherently difficult to absolutely guarantee, Mr. Moy, that things won't get worse there, but the plan is for it not to be because of Mr. Britt's development.
Oh, yes, and then plus we're going to get a second opinion from our engineer.
certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to accept the preliminary plat. All in favor of the motions, raise your hand, please. Opposed? Motion carries.
I live in that neighborhood. I really comment.
Thanks, Brian.
All righty, item 11, curb project at A.G. Cox.
Tony?
Yeah, right here.
We had the added item number 5.
Item number 5 under new
Oh, I'm
business.
sorry, you're right, I did, item number 5, yes.
Okay, I was at, General Assembly today, to draw lines again. we're one of the few municipalities in Whole County that is divided into different house districts. Now, the whole county is one district, but we have three different representatives in the county. We're divided. And, I would like us to send a letter, to our representatives, which we're not there today. We're not, the one that represents us, in the district, was not there today. I don't know why, but they're not there. We sent a letter to the, General Assembly, the, chair of the House, Senate, about not dividing our town. It's a process. Today, they, put together the rules, how they want to most people districts. Tomorrow, we're gonna have 2 hours. Today's meeting lasts 30 minutes, tomorrow lasts 2 hours, and again, we're gonna talk about it third. I've been board these meetings since 1984. I'm not getting how, best representation. We're divided, not what people, we're divided. Like, make a motion, send a letter to our representatives. House and Senate, not divide.
Second.
But do we know exactly what the comparison to, from what we already have to what they are recommending?
Well,
And that's what I don't know.
we run a letter.
It can't be worse.
It can't be worse?
I mean, we're divided several different ways. I don't know how it could be worse.
Too many ways.
Yeah, we provided, anyway, we have not had representation of county commissioners in Kansas City. Not saying, we have not had a, commissioner or board of education representation. That's definitely nasty. They have also, Mike, who lives now, commissioner or board of education, not divided. We need representation, all people need representation. And I was called, my friend last year, and said, you realize you're one of the few municipalities divided in what's going on? One of the few. 600 towns, we're divided. This letter, has just with, House and Senate, to say that, don't divide.
Have a motion and a second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll give this week or 8:30.
Okay. The next item is the curb project at A.G. Cox.
I received a letter, I sent a copy of the one, Mr. Moore, as you know, the Waterman Festival is a big fundraiser for AG Cox at the park. We have 2 gates to access the field for parking cars. The gate, the baseball field has a curve, and it's easy to go to Branson Park to access the parking area. We would like the town to knock off the curve and give the cars easier access to the field. Photo, which I sent you, should be, spot in question on Butler Street, left the baseball field. The second thing is the softball field, give you those pictures of the sport. I need to send it to y'all again. Everybody get the email? Got it?
Yes.
I did. My only concern was the appearance of how the curb's gonna look if you're not, I mean, I've seen a lot of things that are built for cars just to go over. I mean, you're only talking about 2 or 3 days. I'm sure there's a way to fix that without actually going in and knocking the curb out.
I thought we had, Evan, I thought there had been, or been somebody, there had been some makeshift things that have been used in the past.
Yes, ma'am. So when we had the Watermelon Festival last week, what, Thursday, Friday, that was one item that was brought up, yeah, whatever day it was. It's brought up every year where Public Works some years ago built a, I'm going to call it a ramp. It's not exactly a ramp, but an assistive device to help vehicles over the curb. So that, yes, they do have an item in existence for that. It's basically wooden block.
They make about $10,000 a year on that parking investment.
Right, so over off Sylvania at the left field of the softball field, they've got the big gate there, and it is, it's just, the curb is cut down and it's just a driveway. cut right there, and I think that's probably what they're asking for. I don't think they want us to go out there with a sledgehammer and beat the concrete out. We would go in, identify the gate, the width, where those joints are at, cut it out, and re-pour that section of gutter to, then have a slight little ramp, just like a driveway does would do, for them. That's what they're looking for. I would say, with the short window between now and Watermelon Festival, that we utilize the ramp to get us through this year, for plan for schedule, and, do the demo and the installation, the reworking of that, to accommodate them for next year. And it'll probably help with getting any type of equipment in and out of there that they may certainly get to access the field during football season. We can, I can coordinate with, someone over there, Tommy, okay, so I can reach out to him.
And the former rescue guy, former, under trainer, always did have access to the field. So, your son or daughter, appreciate that.
I guess we need a motion.
I don't think we need a motion.
Okay.
As long as there's no, there's no large,
Right.
feelings against
Right,
doing it.
okay, that's fine. All righty, item, number 2 is designation of Railroad Street as Martin Luther King Street and speed bumps.
Both of these items we've discussed in the past as far as, things to be done, with Martin Luther King Street. I think we discussed it and then we didn't do anything. Then we also talked about it as far as the limits as to, how far it would go towards Greenville, because of the fact of, railroad turning into a state street or a state maintained street. And, we didn't do anything after that. It's just like, it's both of these items have been kind of left open to us. I think it would be a fitting tribute to do that. We've had citizens come up here several times to discuss, to advocate for the naming of a street in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King. And the limits would not bother the businesses uptown. Some residences may have to, alter their addresses or coordinate them. But outside of that, everyone along that way has been open to the idea. As far as the speed bumps, the objection to them was that people didn't want them in front of their houses. Well, we have an empty house on Railroad Street right beyond the store. We have, the church, excuse me. And we also have the young lady who was up here today lives right beside there. The problem is that people are not stopping. They're not stopping at that stop sign at the intersection of Tyson and Railroad. And the idea is to get them to stop, get them to slow down at that intersection. And those are my comments about it.
Ms. Robertson, can I get you to verify what part of railroad you're referring to for the MLK?
I would love for it to be from the railroad crossing, because I grew up in that area, and there's a section where, Mayor Jackson, where they would send the cars to Eastern Lumber, somewhere in that area. But, of course, geographically, it would probably be better Tyson to Worthington.
And that's on both sides? That would involve the school?
Just that side. Just this side, that side,
I think
because
it's gotta be both sides. Well, Brian's got some information with
Right.
respect to street rules and regulations.
Thank you, Terry. Reached out to, county, they have the 911 addressing, so they house all the road names and addresses in the county. So reached out to them to see what the issues or what the procedural process would be. So I think it would be Railroad Street. If you say Railroad Street, it does encompass both sides. So if you change it, it wouldn't be just one side, it would be both sides. Procedurally though, it would require a public hearing from the town and a resolution on this end, there is public notification process where you have to, post it in the paper, just, basically like a public hearing notice on any other subdivision. You, notify the public, do the public hearing, then do a resolution, and then proceed forward with the hearing. But according to, E911 guys over the county, it would encompass both sides of the railroad street.
And they could not make an exception.
I don't know, it didn't sound like it because if you pull up Railroad Street, it pulls up one
That's
address.
right.
So, I mean, it's just one set of, it's not like South Florida Street, it's not broken up into two, so it's designated as one road.
So we could not designate the other side as, because, you know, I mean, you're talking about,
Yeah, so, and you're asking questions I just don't have the answer to, but so, from my conversation, it has to be really specific on where you want it. So, and the name has to be specific, so, this is considered a memorialization, it's not considered, it's not grouped in the same category. So, most of the county, you couldn't have two, like, two of the same names, duplicate names, that's what it is. But, you know, memorialization with Martin Luther King, you could do Martin Luther King Boulevard, Martin Luther King Street, or whatever, you have to be specific on what you want the resolution to be, and specific on where you want it to be at. So, those
Specifications.
It could include one side, but I'm not sure. That is possible, but I don't know the answer to that. I can ask that question.
But
I would say
Also-
let's have staff investigate that.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
before we go any further, this question came up many years ago since I've been mayor. And the board pretty much decided at that time never to change the name of a street that's an existing street name. If we wanted to name one, Martin Luther King, pick a section that is a new street or a section that there's no residences on. And Railroad Street, these people that live on it, they don't know what they're gonna get into when you change the address. They're gonna have to change the address, their social security payments, their bank accounts and everything because their address has changed. And, it's gonna be a headache, and of course, I see no reason that we can't name a street, Martin Luther King, but I don't think we should do one that's an existing street already that's been this way for years. Why change it? Go to an area where a new street is gonna be and name it.
my only problem with that is that when we have new developments, just like, behind Chick-fil-A, we got, well, the names are just different
Well,
for those streets.
and those aren't our streets.
But what
That's
I'm
not
saying
even
is
our
that-
street.
I'm using that for an example because the developer chooses the names for the street. That's why I'm using that, not so much that it's our street or not. But I asked that question when that was being developed because the names of those streets are so different. And I was told that the developer chooses the names for the streets. But, so therefore, if a developer came here with a plan, just like the plans we've seen for out there by Carroll Crossing, I didn't look at the names of the streets, but when you get the plat, the streets will be named, won't they?
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of our review process.
And so I don't see where we're gonna get that opportunity to do it unless we do name an existing street. If we were going to build a recreation, building and it had a street leading to it that didn't have a name, that would be fine. But it seems like there's no opportunity to get that done.
Unless you focus on a larger thoroughfare that currently has nothing
Yeah.
on
Have
either
limited,
side.
because, yeah, I'm in tune with the mayor because, you know, how many plots, how many houses, that's on, what?
We did a quick calculation, just from Worthington down to Main Street, so we weren't sure exactly where. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, address points, so,
But
those will be altered and changed to whatever Michael will be in, whatever.
But some of those address points are gonna be empty lots too.
But
Yeah.
still, they will have to change it. I mean, you know,
But
tax
when the-
purposes and everything else that in
If
the
it is an
building.
empty lot and there's nobody living on it, you're not gonna affect a person's life as much as you would lots that had houses on them. I know.
But I'm in for favor of the speed bumps. You know,
Yeah, I could go along with
I
the
mean,
speed bumps.
I agree with the
I could do
speed
that.
bumps, you know.
And where would we be talking about installing those, on both sides?
But the request is only for one side, the side that has, near Tyson, before you
Where
get
the
to
lady
Tyson.
came in and spoke, I mean, I'm in favor on that side over by Cradle Store over there in that area.
It would be farther down,
Yeah,
well, further down the street than Cradle Store, on the other side of the church, or maybe somewhere, well, you don't want it right there by a stop sign, but somewhere down. It is, people do speed in that area, I'm quite sure our police officers can tell you that. They don't stop for the stop sign there, so
Are we-
that's there.
Are we talking about one or two, or what is appropriate?
again, what would be appropriate way Ben or the chief or someone would look at it to determine what would be the necessary
Yeah.
amount of speed bumps to go in. I mean, that's gonna be something that, Public Works and the police department, whoever needs to look at to determine how many we might need.
Well,
in there.
again, the way that normally happens is if that's something y'all want, you defer to staff and have them
Yes.
investigate, and we can bring
Yeah,
it back,
that's,
so.
that's what I would
I
recommend.
make a motion that we ask staff to determine the feasibility of speed bumps in the area.
And looking into renaming the
Yes.
road there.
Uh-huh.
Well, I
And-
think it should.
Yes, it should.
Well,
Because what happened is you're gonna have a public, public hearing anyway on it, right? I
If
mean,
council chooses to move forward.
Yeah, if we choose to move forward, we're gonna have to have a public hearing. So that would give the residents on that street the opportunity to voice their concern and interest also.
Well, is the section that is being thought about up for discussion? In other words, the length of what you're talking about?
You said Tyson to Worthington.
Well,
Tyson to Worthington.
I can't speak for public safety specifically, but I can see some confusion.
Well, I think y'all can bring that back too, as pros and
Okay,
cons.
all right.
Yes,
So we're looking Tyson to Worthington, got it? Both sides.
both sides.
And I think we need to, and I'm sure you will, but that needs to be addressed with the school and what kind of impact that's gonna have on their stuff.
And
Okay.
also to explore with the county if we could just do one side.
I got it.
I know that the
Let me hear
schools
you,
address
let me
it.
hear your motion again.
Well, the motion, let's do them separately, please. I would like for them to be considered separately. Speed bumps first, and then we'll do Martin Luther King.
Speed bumps.
Speed bumps
Speed
first.
bumps.
Who made the
Have a
motion?
motion and I think I'm right.
Ms.
We have a
Robinson.
motion on the floor to, staff to just check and see how many speed bumps would be required. Have a motion to, as a second to that.
Dick, Mr.
Have a
Moore.
second.
Mr. Moore made the second.
Further discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay?
We direct staff to check out, the procedures needed to name Railroad Street from Tyson to Worthington as Martin Luther King Boulevard.
I'd like to
This
make
includes, looking at the 911 addressing and stuff like that.
I'd like to make that motion.
Make
think
sure
Ms.
I hear,
Robertson made
this
the motion.
motion is,
Ms. Robinson made
That
a
was your
motion.
motion.
Now second.
this motion is to name from Tyson to Worthington
For staff to
Investigate.
study it.
to Martin
Staff
Luther.
to investigate, yes.
To investigate,
Yes.
okay. I got it straight. Maybe. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Okay, item number 12 for future agendas.
We have talked in the past about the parking behind the town hall.
Parking behind the town hall.
Parking traffic flow.
Yes, we currently have staff working on the various sections of parking that we previously discussed and should have an update for you by next board meeting.
Okay.
And also too, I want to revisit the permitting for music again.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I'd like to revisit, I think we've discussed permitting, for music. We
You're
did
talking about noise permits?
Noise permit, yeah.
And could we have, a look at some of the, some additional safety precautions at the intersection of Mill and Boyd? It seems like there've been a lot of accidents there. I think in a 2-week period when there were 3 accidents there. Get some more safety, if possible, some safety precautions or safety measures there.
We'll definitely look into that.
Stop sign there.
Lord, I hope not.
Oh, no.
I
No,
hope
no
not.
full way. You couldn't do a full way, but something to get people's attention that, let them know to stop there, because,
Put a roundabout.
no,
Oh, my gosh.
no roundabout.
I'd like to add, let's take a look at I'll call it junk cars. I see more cars sitting around and with no license plates on it, and with cars sitting in the city limits of one of them with no license plates on it, it's costing the town of one of them, because they're supposed to have license plates.
But our ordinance says if it's a certain value, they can be there.
Well, it
You have 10,
is,
15 of them.
lack of license plate alone does not constitute a junked vehicle.
That's what I know.
So,
And we could take a look at that.
I mean, certainly.
And, because there's a car parked behind my house that's been there for almost a year with no license plates on it. Never been moved, just sitting there. It's on, I will say it's on
That
their
you been-
property, it's on their property. It's not on the street.
I thought he was talking about
I
all
was
them.
just checking.
I thought he was talking about all them new cars on Railroad Street. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other items? If not, Mr. Clerk, would you do the announcements, please?
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have a few tonight. As you may already know, last week we had to postpone our back-to-school splash. It would have really been a splash last week. And National Night Out. So it will be this Thursday, which is August the 12th from 4 to 8 p.m. Next Monday, which is August the 16th at 7 p.m., Planning and Zoning Board meeting will be held here in the Assembly Room. Tuesday, August 17th at 7 p.m., Board of Adjustment meeting will be held here in the Assembly Room. From Thursday, August the 16th through Saturday, August the 28th, the Watermelon Festival is back. And then on Monday, September 6th, is Labor Day, and town offices will be closed that day.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, reports from the town attorney.
I have no report tonight. I just would echo what Don just said. We're, of course, tickled to have our Watermelon Festival back after a year off. I know each of you enjoy the festival. We'll look forward to seeing the council out. And also remind that we decided this year that there'll be no tickets. I mean, everything will be free. There's no paid concerts. Please come out and see us.
Can I ask where, I know you've been working on it, but where are we at, and I guess some other people can chime in, on Eli's Ridge and us being able to start work? Electrical.
The condemnation complaints were filed last week. And that with, because of the nature of the condemnation, utilities, we took possession of it on Thursday.
So we can start work.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
When will we start work?
Robert's been waiting for you to ask that question.
I have been waiting to answer that question. Talked with our boring contractor. This first thing we need to do is get those pipes underneath the road so we can start pulling wire in. I'd also talked with a contractor to help us during the process to speed it up even more. And today I reached out to the farmer that owns the cotton that's on the field to tell him that we'll be mowing a few rows of it, and we'll absolutely make things right with him. But I want to let him know what we'll be doing out there. My intention, I have about, I'm gonna say 5 to 6 working days left in Holly Grove, and as soon as we finish that up, my intention is to have everything lined up. Some of them may already be done by subcontractors by that point. But I would really love to have every bit of it done in 4 to 6 weeks tied in.
So we're saying before they have electricity, we're looking at another 30 days to 45 days.
I'm gonna tell you that, but normally when I tell you 4 to 6 weeks, I think I can do it quicker than that. It's all gonna be dependent on the weather and being able to get out there. I got about 800, to be exact, 832 feet.
Have we relayed that information to the developer?
We did.
We talked with Lincoln last Thursday.
Okay, good.
And we told them 30 to 45 days or so? And
He's as eager as we are. I mean, obviously, he wanted a little quicker than that, but the good news is, if they chose, they could go ahead and start pulling permits and start construction now if they wanted. By the time they got to the point they need power,
Right.
we should have everything.
sounds good. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Any staff member that would like to bring items up? Okay, hearing none.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here comes the police.
That was good.
Good evening again. In lieu of the weather change of schedule for National Night Out and Back to School Splash, I had previously committed to an engagement for the 12th. So I wanted to let the council know if you happen to come out there and you're looking for me, obviously I think that is an awesome event, and I've never not been at one of those. But I've got a staff of eager officers that are going to be present, and I'll be there in spirit, but I'll actually be somewhere else. But I just didn't want you to be out there and not know that before.
I got 2 questions I'd like to ask you.
All right.
Beginning of school, will we be providing a extra officer or 2 to get things rolling that first day of school for both of these schools, since we know that we got COVID precautions and all these things in place now?
So we'll probably let our school resource officer give us some guidance if he needs more assistance. I know A.G. Cox, I don't know how they're gonna have that area ready for school.
Me either.
And they haven't submitted what their new drop-off and pickup and bus schedule is gonna look like, if it's gonna be the same, what road it's on. Obviously, we've been in contact with the resource officer and their staff. Once they solidify that plan, obviously that's gonna take extra staffing until the parents and the students and the buses and everybody gets used to that. We'll assist as needed.
Well, speaking from a parent who's got kids at, seems like all the schools, but Robinson, and I know why, but it's always a nightmare the first 2 or 3 days, but most of it is the kindergarten mamas and daddies who have no idea which way traffic goes, and, you know, it's not the kids that have been out there, it's those new kindergarten parents, and those cars are going every direction, and it's a train wreck first 2 or 3 days. So what Ms. Robertson is talking about is probably well needed at Robinson, better than Cox, but I'm sure both of them could use the help. But I think it's a great idea for us to be out there the first 2 or 3 days.
It's a well-oiled machine once they get there.
Yeah, it's great once they get going, but those first couple of days are a nightmare.
Yeah.
As long as I've been here.
I would like, I mean, I don't know what the resource officer, what he talked to you about, but since being over at AG Cox and Mark, I know you drop off in the morning, but in the afternoons, that, I mean, traffic going both ways.
Yeah.
I think they figured it out last year. They have traffic going one way, he blocks, you know, and because it's a nightmare. Kids running across you, you know, so I don't know what we could do to make that one way at a certain time or whatever, you know.
Well, I've been waiting for them to choose what they're gonna do and present a plan so I can bring it to you for
Okay.
approval. That is what I would like to see. It's hard to get the staff of AG Cox historically, because the staff have to commit to come out there and manage that. One officer can't
Right.
manage that, and they will not, for some reason, task their staff to.
It's been an ongoing discussion for years
It has.
now to try to have a more collective approach to that issue.
Yeah,
But I mean, if you got the Conley, the assistant principal standing smack dab in the middle of all of it, making sure that cars are, so, and even out at,
Yes.
Chicago, that Highway 43 is managed by, you know, there's an officer out there, but the staff and everybody's involved. Wintergreen's the same way if you try to get on, Corey Road, Corey, or is it,
County Home.
Kind of home road.
County Home. It's officers and staff out there taking care of that.
I know that the first of school, it's just like, they said, if we can get them started right, it usually goes pretty good. Former school teacher, I know the first couple of days of school, everything is like, okay, we can't do this tomorrow, you know, we gotta change it. And the other thing I wanna ask you about is, could an officer move that crossing bar there at, Boyd? It seems like it gets left out there, pretty much. A lot, the crossing, you know, that, I would say crossing bar, but
Something the school puts out in the
Yeah, the
leaves
school
there
is responsible.
the,
Yes.
after school hours.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's out there for longer periods than needed, you know, and everything. And, I think the citizens don't touch it because, you know, nobody knows, well, I don't get out of my car and touch it either. But, it could, to keep that crossing open because we do have these drainage problems. Sometimes you can't get to, I can't get to Worthington, you know, going down Railroad. If we could, you know, if they go through there and see it out, that one of the officers, just put it over to the side.
Yes, I can have, our SRO talk to whoever's putting that out.
I think maintenance normally does, and for years it was never a problem, but Ms. Robertson's right. In
Yeah.
the more recent years, they tend to be left out more so than normal.
That's all.
Think of
That's all the
letter.
questions I have. Thank you.
I think I have one question for Mr. Jones about, Mr. Jones? Do you have any foresight or outlook on, the senior citizen apartments that was pre-planning and hopefully a decision supposed to be made, sometime this summer, and we haven't heard anything else on that?
I haven't heard yet. I think their official date was sometime this month, so I think the Finance and Housing Finance Committee meets sometime in the middle of August, and they should have final information. So I should be able to report back next month.
That means to whether or not if they are going to go along
That's right.
with their plans? Okay. All right.
I'll reach back out to Evergreen, this week and get on that, see what their schedule is, and hopefully have you done in the next month.
And you say that would be in August, but, September, sometime in September?
It's August, but I'll confirm with,
Our-
Tim Morgan with you.
We should have a report, though, to you in September.
In
At the
September,
meeting.
okay, fantastic.
We'll let you know if for some reason that time frame gets changed.
Yes, ma'am. Good.
Just wanted to update, let you know, on the sewer rehab project that's going on. We've got
Thank you.
2 more streets in town that we need to block off.
Oh, Lord.
No, I'm just messing. All right, so at some.
I didn't know there were 2 left that
Yeah,
we
that's
didn't have
right.
blocked
We'll get
off.
our hands just going around in circles. So they are making progress. We will be having a change order coming before y'all, at the next meeting. There has been some delays with regard to supplies, availability of pipe, everything's running into that. We didn't want them working on certain things until they had all the materials. We've had some issues with the railroad, their inspector, the railroad doing their work at, we had hosted a tournament, we didn't want them working in particular areas, so there's been some delays at our request, some delays based on supplies, and some delays just based on complexity of the work. It will be extending, we're thinking probably through September for their work. That's
Which would equate to an additional month.
an actual about 2 months additional work total because of some of the weather, the supplies, and some of our requests. So we'll be working through that. There's, like I said, we'll be bringing a change order for some work. We had actually one thing we ran into was there's old asbestos pipes in town. They're very brittle. When you go messing around, they fall to pieces or whatever. So we've been encountering some of those on the water side as we're coming through with the sewer and storm drain improvements in those areas. So we've had a couple of delays that cost us a couple of days because of having to fix the water line issue that we've run into. They will be hopefully finishing the section that they're on in Main Street this week. We will have to block the intersection at the stoplight to take that manhole out and relocate that between Mill and the railroad tracks in front of your very area there. So there will be, y'all likely won't be able to park on the street right there for a good while. And then there we'll have to hop over the railroad tracks and replace the manhole at the corner of the fire station to then prepare for lining of that section from Church to the railroad tracks. So they're just having to schedule some of those things. We've also been talking to them about not being in the way for the festival and the parade. So we're just trying to maneuver all those working.
So when do we
parts and pieces.
So when do we anticipate from Mill to 11 to reopen?
Mill to 11, the goal is to have that in, and they're making pretty good progress. Next week should be completed. That will not be finished, just like a lot of places, and we've been on them about, and you notice some of the rocks have been paved. There's still some remaining rock patches that are settling. That will be the case on Main Street there. That trench will have to settle over time, and then we'll come back, or the contractor will come back in and pave that section through there once it's settled enough. And that'll be the case on the other areas, Church Street, when we relay that line along there as well. So.
I don't understand why they have to work with the worst street. I don't care if I use that, hold it, like behind the Dick Street.
There, certainly, there's, and I think part of your observation of a lot of, maybe a few fender benders at Boyd and Mill is because this is closed and people are cutting and trying to scoot. We could probably put a cell phone scrambler right there, and that would maybe draw people's attention.
Exactly.
And the reason for a few wrecks that we've had over there is folks looking at this and didn't realize, oh, it's not your turn to go. It's not a four-way stop.
Well, I hadn't been back there lately. Did we do anything? I know, Terry, you and I had briefly discussed behind the apartments, behind the Dixie Queen.
Yes, I know that I talked with the public works supervisor, and he was gonna talk with you about making sure that that was right up there. That, and there was one other location in our next patching.
I mean, if nothing more than just filling it in, packing it.
Right, excavating it out, packing it at least, and that in line, in a larger patching paving, project, but that is one that is on, we have spoken with a consultant about a streets project for this coming year, to finish some of the work that we've had and to target some of these.
But we just need to do something back there, even if it's temporary. I mean, before long, a car's gonna fall in and we're not gonna be able to find it.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Are they going, since you're up here, are they going to white stripe, old tar? I noticed they did the yellow, but they hadn't done anything on the sides, the white
No, the
stripe.
shoulder,
Is
yes,
that,
sir.
are they not gonna do that, or is that gonna be done?
I believe they're planning on doing that, just a different truck.
And it's still got L'Orealis to do, but at least it's paved.
That's right.
Just make sure Robert can get that big, nice fire truck out of there, out of the bay.
Oh,
Okay, all right. When they start working out front, you just make sure Rob can get that big, nice fire truck out of there.
Retention pond next to me, we're gonna get that cut anytime this summer.
we can look if, they're not taking care of it, we can.
Well, we talked about it a couple weeks ago.
I'll check with code
Nobody's
enforcement.
cut it.
Okay.
Well, now, there's two neighbors who cut their little portion, but the majority back further has not been cut this summer. I mean, right now, a bear could get in there and I wouldn't see him.
We'll check with code enforcement staff to see what measures have been taken and then see where
See if it's
we
something
fit in
our
that
guys can just go
process.
knock out and done.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, me?
You the mayor pro tem, not me.
I don't forgot who I
But
am.
if you need me to move it on along, I will.
Mr. Moore.
Nobody was
I'm sorry.
prodding me over here.
I was wondering what
I'm
was
so used
happening.
to, yeah, Mr. Moore, you have anything? God
Vince,
almighty.
you going with us next week? Are you going with us next week? Where we going?
Yes, yes, Ben and Robert.
We should all promise to not hassle you during that time, be nice to you, I'll do my best to, not.
Wait a minute, why would you do that? No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
We give you a hard time with this. And I'm passing down my book now.
Thank you so much.
And people don't know my,
Thank
my town email address is Terry Parker.
I don't know why that.
Anyway, thanks, staff, it's been a difficult time for all of us, it's the wet season, and we've got more rain in the last 6 days, get plenty all year long. Thanks what you do every day, don't mean to hassle about all the bumps in the roads, and you can't help it all with the rain. Thanks what you do.
Yes, sir, Mr. Harvey.
Back on his electricities, those of you all going, I will have your packages and with all your necessaries in them. Let me see, should be Friday, and I'll check with you. I may have them a day earlier, I'll let you know, and that will have your travel check in it also.
I'll be gone Friday, Ashland, Thursday.
Okay, I'll get yours earlier.
Okay.
I'm going to do crap on
Then I will work to have them all ready on Thursday then.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Ms. Robinson?
I just want to make everyone aware, citizens aware of a program, wages, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they will allow $2,500 worth of specified repairs to homes. Always getting requests from people. And Mr. Harvey was nice enough today to run the copies, and they're right up in the foyer of our building. I do appreciate the town support in allowing me to ride up with Mr. Moy, who was a great driver, to our ALC ambassador reunion workshop last week. It was very, very instructive, and it helps a lot. So, and I do thank everybody for everything that they've done. I know Chief Will Hite, I email you a lot of times, and I appreciate your support and David's support for the parade for Mrs. Mabel Hooks this weekend. Hopefully, we'll be able to have it Saturday, if the weather permits, at 4 o'clock. So anybody that wants to join in, will line up at Robinson. Hopefully, the weather will cooperate. I know she's over 90 years old, so thank you.
Mr. Smith,
I don't have anything.
Mr. Moy?
Yes, I just have, one thing I wanted to say is, you know, this right here definitely is a important time in our life that with the pandemic, it's still surfing, is up and down, just like a roller coaster. And I'm asking each one of us, all of us, not just you, myself also, let's continue to be very careful and be cautious. And because that pandemic is for real. I coached myself and Mr. Moore and even Mr. Smith had coached baseball during our time in the past. And Mark might be doing it now. But I saw and I heard that the 10, 11-year-olds in Greenville was down in Florida, and they was into a tournament. And they have to come back home, not because they lost the game, because of that pandemic. So one of the kids, or someone, they didn't say whom, got infected. So they didn't have the opportunity to finish the tournament down in Florida. So I'm saying to us, let's be cautious, be careful. Check your loved ones, especially the small kids, to make sure that they stay safe as much as possible. I know nothing's not guaranteed, but we can do all we can while we can.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'll echo what Mr. Moy said. This thing, it seems to be getting as serious as it was in the beginning. I got my oldest granddaughter came down with it, and her daughter, who was 2 years old, came down, and they are both doing okay now, but and they'd had the shots. It was a 2-year-old hadn't had the shot, but my granddaughter, she's finance officer for Roberts Company out here. The whole plant was, a whole office staff out there was under quarantine for a few days. So, like I say, echoing what Mr. Moore said, we need to be very, very careful.
Town manager?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay, I reckon me being Mayor Pro Tem, which I didn't know, as of tonight, but I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry about my interruption, but one of those things.
But for me, sentiments. Of course, today we lost a guy that I've been knowing for a long time. And my prayers and condolence go out to his family, Tom Little. Just be mindful and keep his family in prayer. That's for a lot of people who didn't know, or a lot of people do know. I had COVID. I was in the hospital for 3 days with COVID. 3 days that was very tough because you're laying there and you have no family. And that's the toughest thing. You're there alone, and and it's changed my outlook on life for people. I don't wish that on anyone, and I don't wish anybody to be alone. That's a bad feeling, people. You look around, you see your doctors and your nurses, and they're doing everything in their willpower to keep you alive. But at the end of the day, you don't have your loved ones. And, I'm just thankful. So, we're grown, we make our own decisions, and that's a decision that you gotta make, but just be mindful. And with that said, Mayor, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, excuse me, I'll echo what you just said. I spent 5 weeks in a nursing facility after I had my leg removed. no visitors, and couldn't leave the room. So I know what you're talking about. It's very stressful. If there are no other comments, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.